Well, hello there. It's Keith again. We're going to be trying something quite different today. Now, this is a series of videos I'm planning to do, and what I'm doing is I'm buying up some old MSX computers that are cheap because they're slightly faulty, and I'm going to try to repair them because, to be honest, in the past when I've done this for my own purposes, it's been very easy, and really all it tends to take to get them working is a bit of a clean. And if they've got a floppy drive, they just need a new floppy drive belt installing. So I'm hoping that we can show that really, if you want to get a cheap MSX, you can get one that's slightly solders faulty. And even if you have really no experience at all, because I can solder, but that's about it. I'm no skilled electrician. But you can really get these things working and in good working condition again with no real efforts at all. So it's something you definitely want to consider if you want to get your hands on a system. So what have we got today? Well, you can see I've got this rather strange box here, and according to the box, these are actually trading cards. But I'm hoping that's not true, because I've paid a bit too much for them, if they are. We've got a label on the top here. Now, the label matches the description of when I bought it online. It's sold as a HBF5. Now, I checked online before I bought it. That's actually an MSX2, but the label here only mentions it being an MSX, so I'm pretty sure they're wrong. Now, the memory in it is 64 kilobytes, and that's a good sign it's an MSX2, because I think there were a few MSX1s that had 64K, but the vast majority only had around 16K. It's also got 2 cartridge slots, which is almost universal for an MSX2. Not quite, but almost. But it's very rare again for the MSX1. So again, as I say, my general feeling is this is the MSX2, unless the model number's been written on wrong. And I paid about, I think this was 3,800 yen, which is around £30 or $40 or something. If I can get this to the state where it's a working MSX2, then this will be a bargain system, and it will be my second cheapest system to date. But my cheapest was sold without a power supply, which was a serious problem for the MSX2 because it's a dual voltage power supply, and the 12 volt line is actually AC, not DC. So this has got a built-in power supply. It's got a power cord running straight out. So if I can get this in fully working order, then we'll be in luck, and we'll have a fully working MSX2 that I could use to run my game on, and all my future games I'm going to have the same minimum requirement of MSX2, 64K of internal memory, floppy disk drive or floppy emulator. And because this has got 2 slots in it, we can use one for our floppy emulator and one for the V9K graphics accelerator. So this is kind of my ideal minimum system, so to speak. So at the bottom of the description label here, we've got a description of the state of the hardware. So let's just have a look at that and see if we can figure out what we're letting ourselves in for, so to speak. Okay, so I mean, it says that the body is dirty and there's some sun. It says burn, but it'll mean like sunburn, you know, the kind of discoloration. It says there's some scratches. Well, we don't care about that. There's some corrosion on the the back connectors. Well, okay, whatever. It says the RF out doesn't work. Now the RF out will be the TV aerial socket. We won't use that. We'll use the composite video, the yellow one, so we don't care about that. Now this is the important one, and I think this is why it's so cheap. According to the next line down, it says that half of the keyboard does not work, but apart from that, there's no issues. And it says because of this, it's being sold as junk, which basically means no returns, and you know, you can't complain it doesn't work. So I mean, really, all of this is going to come down to how bad is the problem with the keyboard? Can we fix it? Now, based on past experience, really, there's been one MSX I've had which has had a crack in the keyboard membrane. Actually, the paint was missing. It wasn't a crack. The paint had worn off. So I can replace that with electric paint. Another one I had that the keyboard was somewhat faulty, was actually just dirty, and I just cleaned it with a wet piece of paper towel, and that fixed it. Now, being as this one says that half the keyboard is missing, it's either got to be very dirty, or it'll be huge pieces of hair inside it or something, or maybe there's a crack, because if you're not familiar with these membranes, they tend to work with about, I think these are 8 wire or maybe 10 on the MSX, but there's 2 plastic membranes, each of which has these 8 wires or 10 wires on it, and where the 2 wires touch, then the key will be registered. So if half the keyboard membrane isn't working, then that would suggest if there's a crack, or paint missing, it's affecting 4 wires. So that would be something quite significant. But anyway, as I say, I've spent almost no money on this, relatively speaking. I just thought it'd be a bit of fun to see what the state of it is and see what the problems are. So we're going to open it up, we'll check it out, and we'll plug it in, we'll see what the problems are, and we'll try and fix them. So let's go over to the overhead camera. Okay, so let's see what we've actually bought then. Exciting newspaper here. Look at that. I don't care about newspaper. More newspaper. More newspaper. Oh, we've got video cables. Well, these black ones are quite interesting. Sometimes they're different lengths, the pins on those, so we'll keep those. We do have other ones there. So here's the race unit itself. Out of the way. Away. Myself. So here we go. So let's see what we've got. So yeah, it's an MSX2. It says MSX2 there, 128K video RAM. There are some, I believe, that don't have 128K, but it's very rare. So we've got two cartridge slots. The thing I quite like about this one is they're both on the top. Often one's on the top and one's on the back. So to say, I quite like the top-based ones, so that's quite nice. Home intelligent terminal, which sounds very exciting. I don't quite know what that means. I like the sort of design of this one. Generally the MSXs are black, the MSX2s at least, and certainly the ones I've got. So this is this has more of a sort of home computer feel, more of a sort of office computer feel. Maybe that's why they've used the phrase intelligent terminal rather than, you know, the usual kind of language they use. And maybe that's why it's got a built-in power cable to make it sort of more appropriate for sort of office use. Now that is very rusted there. That's quite uncommonly rusted. That looks like that's a SCART plug, isn't it? I think that's a SCART plug, which is unusual because TVs don't have SCART in Japan. They don't have anything to plug that into. If that is, I think that looks like SCART, but I say nothing to plug into. Strange as well. Power out. That's rare. But anyway, these look in good condition. That looks terrible, but maybe we could clean it up. But as I say, I don't really care if that doesn't work or not. Power plug on the side. No floppy drive, of course. Now the ones with floppy drives do tend to have the internal power supply, but the ones without, a lot of them use an external power brick. But I mean, it makes no difference to me. I'm perfectly happy with anything that the power works on. And to be honest, the external power bricks are so unusual with their requirements for, it's an 18-volt AC in that's then sort of stepped down to 12 volts. So replacing that if it's broken, such a pain that you know, it might as well just have the internal one, in all honesty. So anyway, let's plug it in and see if anything explodes. Let's hope it doesn't. Okay, so we're just going to use this. Just put the video line in here, the yellow one, and we've only got one audio. MSXs always seem to be mono, which is quite surprising. So very, very advanced in most ways. So it's a bit odd to me that they use mono still. But anyway, I'm not fussy. So I'll just turn my little TV on, and let's power this up and see what happens. Oh, we got an MSX screen, that's a good start. So, oh, we've got some internal ROM. So what have we got here? DualShock, what on earth's that? Schedule, memo, transfer. Oh, DualShock, oh, sorry, it's an address book or something. Okay, well, all of the MSXs, all of the ones without floppy drives, they have this weird internal ROM of some kind, which I can't really comment on how realistically you'd actually want to use them, because these days you've got so much better things. But they all come with these like little memo pads and calculators and strange things, and what we really want is basic. So okay, so here's basic. So let's try some keyboard. Oh no! Oh! well, now you see this is a bit suspicious. Now I'm pressing hard and they're working. Well, they wouldn't work if this was a membrane problem. Well, the row key. Hang on a minute. The row keys are kind of. Oh, woo. I'm using the Japanese kana symbols. The row key doesn't work. But honestly, all the other ones are working. I just have to press them quite hard. Maybe a few are faulty. Yeah, all of them are working. They're just. I think this is just. You know, it's been. I mean, my apartment is damp as holy heck. I mean, there's just damp everywhere. It just seems to like build up. So I have loads of dehumidifiers everywhere all the time, and I think maybe this one has just had years of damp and mold and nasty things like that have built upon the membrane. But what I'm seeing here is that, well, half the keyboard is a bit sticky, but it works. If it was cracked, pressing harder wouldn't help. So I think this is just dirt. So let's have a look. So power this off and unplug it because I don't like electrocution. Okay, I mean, you know, just usually the ones I work on don't have built-in transformers, but of course if you're really new to all of this, then you just want to bear in mind that the fact that it's got transformers and big capacitors in it means that it will actually hold a charge even if you've unplugged it. So we're going to stay away from the power section. We're just going to be messing with the keyboard. So I've got my nice Chibiakuma's cup here, which I'm going to use to retain the screws. Rather nice company that does sort of small runs of custom printed stuff in Japan that I've had print my t-shirts for my Patreons, and that cup is a sort of so shall we say a test for maybe a future product that I might do. But the problem with t-shirts is you can bash them around a bit, whereas with cups they're quite fragile. So I've not done that as a prize yet for the Patreon backers, but it is something I'm planning to do maybe later if I don't find an easier product to ship. Right, okay, so just 3 screws. Okay. Just that away. Okay, so what's going on here? Okay, so the power switch is holding it in. Ooh, well, that's quite nice. Now usually they're plastic ribbon cables, but in this case we've actually got these proper cables, shall we say. That's quite oh, okay, so this is a full PCB. That's totally thrown me. I was assuming this was going to be membrane, but this is far more substantial. This is a full printed circuit board. Okay, we're not going to rub that with a wet cloth then. So here's the actual board. Oh dear, one of those nasty solid state batteries. They're prone to, I believe they're prone to exploding, and when they explode they actually leak sort of nasty chemicals everywhere. So we may take that out. Often the MSX2s have a battery usually they have a battery block in the bottom, and you just they just take AA batteries, but that's actually it's actually a bit alarming. Let's have a look at that. I mean, there's some slight rust on the side, but I don't think that's gone. But we'll definitely, we'll have a look at the keyboard, but I'll cut that out. I don't care whether the computer knows what the date is or not. But I mean, this is a real nice design, to be honest. I'm just looking, this is quite an unusual one. To be honest, this doesn't look like the usual. Usually they've got a little PCB about this big that's kind of on riser pins that does the video work, and it looks identical for every single MSX, but this one doesn't have it. And it's like, well, is this one in some way, been built for a higher price point, or was it an earlier model or something? But I mean, say it looks very nice, but I am slightly I'm not concerned, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to deal with the keyboard, being as my theory that it would just be a simple membrane is apparently quite off the mark. So what have I got here? So I've got lots of screws everywhere. Not sure what, I'll try taking these off first. Just one of those. Not sure what that was holding in then. Where do we go from here then? Okay. Right, well these are, I mean it looks to me like these are individual, these are actual physical switches and they're all individually on the sold to the board. So you know, I'm not going to be able to, I don't know what that tiny little screw I just unscrewed does, but I mean, I could unscrew these big metal ones, but it just seems to me that's going to remove the PCB from the top and that's not going to actually get me any further. What I think we'll try I say, I'm still standing by my theory that the switches are all gunged up. Now, I don't have any specialist switch cleaner. WD-40, which is like sort of like spray oil, is a definite no-no. It kills keyboards dead, so we don't want to do that. But you know, that is what I expected to happen. You know, we've not really got any closer to the problem. So I don't know if you can see here, but they're just, these pins here are just the switches going straight onto the board, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay. So let's have a think. So that's just the LED. Okay. Okay, so we can get that far. So we can, at least we can pry the keyboard or keys off the keyboard without completely wrecking them. So let's push that back on for starters. So what I'm going to try, and I have no idea if it's going to work. First we'll work out which way these went back in, because stupid and didn't check. I mean, if you're going to really take these things apart and the cables aren't well marked, taking a photo of the board, so you don't just do what I just did and plug them in backwards. Taking a photo of the board's a good idea. Of course, I've got the video I could check back on, but really I should have done that. Now, keyboard's probably not an issue, but some of the floppy drive connectors you can plug in backwards and they have the power run through with the data. So if you plug them in backwards, then it short circuits not just the floppy drive but the motherboard. So you would basically be, I believe you would end up with a machine that not only did the floppy disk drive not work, but the entire floppy drive controller was dead, which you wouldn't be very happy with. But I mean, in circumstances, you'd be lucky if it worked at all still. So got to be careful of that. That's 4 mains. I'm very happy with that. we do have to be quite careful now, because in case you haven't guessed, you know, that is live mains. So you know, we do. If you're not confident, if you're not sure, don't do this kind of thing. What I want to do, I mean, they're easing up on their own. So I'm going to pry this Roki up. So I've just pried that up because these just seem to be completely self-contained, which is very nice, but it leaves me with really very few avenues to repair them, because, you know, even if I unsoldered it, I've got nothing to swap it with. So I'm just going to spray some of this. It's basically isopropyl alcohol. Spray that in it, and we'll give it a few bashes up and down and see if it comes to life. Okay, it's going crazy now. There is actually some water in this isopropyl alcohol. It's only about 60% alcohol, so it's probably creating a short circuit there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch this off, and I'm going to do it. Really don't like that. I'm going to switch this off. We're going to leave it for about half an hour while the isopropyl alcohol evaporates, and we'll see if that Roki works better or worse. If it works worse, then I'll cry for a few hours and then throw it all in the bin. If it works better, which, to be honest, if I've uploaded it to the internet, probably means it did, then we'll have a look at the other keys. These seem to be getting better just with a bit of bashing, because, as I say, I think really this is just built up corrosion over the years because of lack of use. So, but yeah, we'll give it a time, see if that Roki works better. That's what that symbol means, by the way. And then we'll deal with the other keys on a one-by-one basis, because really, I mean, for me to play games on it, all I need is to be able to type run disk. You know, I'm not going to be typing my life work on it, although, you know, my life I probably could. But anyway, so yeah, we'll have a look at this in an hour's time. A bit of a hardware malfunction there. I did some stuff where I thought the camera was recording, but I'd not pressed the button correctly. The light sequences on this, it flashes when it's recording and it's on when it's powered up, so I was wrong there. I've removed the battery here with a pair of wire cutters here. It looks like this battery is dead. It's only outputting 0.5 volts. It's supposed to be 2.4. It's at least discharged, but I think we owe it some serious credit because it's intact still. It hasn't leaked, it seems, at all, and maybe if we charged it, it would still work. But anyway, so I've just cut it off here, and this will mean the machine will work forevermore without risk of this exploding. So this is going in the bin. But apart from that, I've put some tape over the power switch here because I don't like getting electrocuted, which is never a good thing. And I've been cleaning this off because there was all kinds of horrible dirt in it, and I've just been using some spray duster here and the cotton wool buds just to wipe the worst of it out. So let's power this up again and let's just see if the Roki has stopped firing like crazy. As I say, the moisture in the this is sort of 60%. This is only like 60% isopropyl alcohol with 40% water. I've never had any problems with it in the past, but obviously, you know, these kind of switches, a small amount of moisture can, you know, it's misfiring still. You can see it's actually now pressing the square brackets, the key here as well, and that's because the moisture has sort of spread down. So it looks like we've got no choice but to wait it out. I have no idea how long it's going to take for that to evaporate, so we're just going to have to wait. So I think I actually spoke a bit too soon there. Having another look at the motherboard, it seems there's some shiny resin here, and looking at the resistor here, there is actually some signs of corrosion. Now, I don't know if that's just unrelated, but maybe the battery has leaked something, but it's been a lot kinder than the horror stories of sort of green acid dissolving everything in the board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some isopropyl alcohol and some cotton wool buds, and I'm going to clean up that corrosion, and we'll see if we can. I'd say we if it has leaked, then we're very. I mean, there's definitely some green crud on this this little chip here. But if it's leaked and it hasn't damaged anything, then we're incredibly lucky. Yeah, there's blue on there as well. We're very, very lucky. So what I'm using again is my isopropyl alcohol. If I decide stronger measures are needed, I tend to move to nail varnish remover, which I'm sure will horrify you all, but that's what I use. The only problem with nail varnish remover is it's much stronger, but it can remove the it removes the green off the printed circuit board, obviously the solder mask. So I tend to escalate things in stages depending on the severity of the incident. But I use, if I've got game cartridges that refuse to play, I use a combination of nail varnish remover and kitchen cream cleaner, that white or sometimes yellow stuff, because it's slightly abrasive. And I've brought back cartridges that have been dead in the past. I got a discounted one once from a store. It was PC Dengen, which is called Bonk in the West. I wanted that on Famicom, and the store had it, but it hadn't been tested. They couldn't get it working, and I sort of said, well, I'll buy it anyway. And they gave me a discount on it, and I did get it working, and it just tons of isopropyl and kitchen cleaner and nail varnish remover, and it came back to life. But as I say, they'd given up on it because they weren't planning to sell it me, but I insisted, and they gave me a discount. So again, stores in Japan, even stores that are supposed to sell second-hand computers, aren't very thorough at cleaning their products, because the vast majority of stuff I buy cheap, I can get it working without even needing a soldering iron. So, I mean, you know, that printed circuit, that slot there doesn't look so great, but I mean, if that's the worst, I mean, that's quite protected. I mean, you'd have thought if anything was going to go, it'd be these chips here. So, I don't know. I mean, it's like if that battery has leaked, then if this is the only damage we've got, then well, it just looks more. It's more akin to what I'd expect from just an old computer, not a exploded battery. So I say, if that's all it's done, that's incredible. So okay. And that's the sort of level of damage you tend to see if a capacitor's gone. And this capacitor looks good though, so, and unless it's a coincidence, unless that capacitor's failed and the battery was just happened to be in the same vicinity. But I mean, I can't see any problems. Okay, well anyway, I did have quite a curious one. They sold it me, and it was one of these similar ones that was sort of second-hand, sold broken. And they said, it said, the video's all corrupted and distorted. And I thought, oh yeah, it's you know, you probably just haven't plugged the plug in correctly, I thought. So I bought it and I got it home, and I was like, I plugged it in, and it's like, and I switched it on, and the video was shaking like crazy. And I thought, oh god, the video's failing. What am I going to do with that? So I thought, well, yeah, I'll open it up. So I opened it up, and you looked at the capacitors. No, well, the capacitors don't look like there's any real problem with them. You know, there's no bulging, there's no horrendous corrosion. So I thought I'll just give it a wipe over with the isopropyl alcohol and the buds, and did that, and then switched it back on again. It went fine, and it just seemed to be, again, the corrosion had built up, just the condensation kind of corrosion. And it was, I guess, short-circuiting things that didn't particularly like being short-circuited a little bit. And that was causing this crazy image. But originally, my best hypothesis was that the signal chip, you know, the clock timing chip was failing or something, because, as I say, the screen was shaking all over the place. It wasn't just that the colours were a bit out. It was real unusable. But anyway, say, you'd be amazed how many of these cheap machines just need cleaning. Anyway, we'll stop the video now, and I will bring it back in an hour or two when either the row key has started working again, or when I'm admitting in shame that I seem to have damaged the machine because the isopropyl has caused permanent damage. But I'm hoping that won't be the case. Okay, see you later. Well, the keys are still sticking, and it's actually getting worse, which has surprised me a little bit. Like, it's kind of spreading. Now, one thing I'm wondering is the back of this keyboard is quite sticky, and when I flipped it over with it powered up, which obviously not a great idea, but a lot of random keys pressed, and I'm wondering if it's actually the sort of, not corrosion as such, but various build-up on the back here that's causing various short circuits. Because, as I say, there doesn't seem to be anything in between the two that should mean it's spreading and getting worse. So I'm going to use my isopropyl alcohol again and clean the back, and we'll see if that makes things any better. I'm not sure it will, but as I say, it's not working at the moment. Rather worse, rather more embarrassingly, is having, while waiting for the keys to see if it would actually sort of get better or not, I've been bashing away at the other keys, and actually I think they've all, just repeatedly pressing them quite hard has actually seemingly fixed the ones that weren't working. So my spraying isopropyl alcohol has now caused the only remaining fault that the keyboard possesses. It's a shame I'm not familiar with this kind of keyboard. As I say, all the ones I've fixed in the past have been membrane, and it never occurred to me that this one was going to be something else. So I'm just going to give it a clean with this. You can see there's definitely some kind of build-up. No idea what it is, but definitely lots of something. It's not going to help, that's for sure. But whether it is actually causing partial short circuits that are registering as key presses, I'm not sure. I mean, the switches here are soldered. The membrane ones are very sensitive, but I would have expected that one that was physical soldered switches would have not been so sensitive. But as I say, I'm far from an expert at these things. So it's these ones here that are the problem. So it's now affecting the one below and the one above, which, you know, if there was a piece of sponge in between, a common piece of sponge, I would have said that sponge had expanded, and that's why the problem had spread with me spraying the isopropyl alcohol. But I can't see a sponge, and well, the isopropyl alcohol I would have thought would have evaporated by now, because the glass I sprayed it into earlier is now completely, well, it appears to be dry. Lots of bits on there, but we can get those off later. I'm particularly worried about bits. What I'm worried about is the keyboard getting better or worse. So I mean, it's not any better. I've not got the screen key. I've not got the on-screen one showing it, but I mean, it's not any better. So I am going to just have to leave this till tomorrow and hope that the problem resolves itself, because I've got no ideas left. Very annoying, but Anyway. So it's been 24 hours now, and I'm going to try the MSX2 again to see if that key's dried out and maybe it'll work a bit better. We've actually had some quite bad weather in Japan today. It's been raining all day, so not the more humidity than I wanted, seeing as I was hoping things would dry out, but let's see what happens and give it a go. I've also been doing some more cleaning of it, as you can see, and there's probably plenty more nastiness in there yet that we could remove, but we'll just see if we've got any working keys, because there's no point cleaning it if the keys are going to play up. Yeah, okay, it's looking promising. Okay, so I mean, I don't know if you remember, these two keys were sticking because I sprayed the isopropyl alcohol into the top one, and it seemed to spread down to this one, and at one point this key and this key were actually playing up as well, but it looks like it's fixed now. So I mean, the summary really is, it doesn't seem to have done a lot of good, my isopropyl alcohol. I think I've lucked out in that it seems it's working again, but this was one of the worst keys. But honestly, repeatedly bashing it just over and over again, a dozen or 50, 100 times maybe, seems to have cleaned them. I'm kind of guessing, I don't know, that's a micro switch that has a different click to it. I'm not sure what's actually under these, but I think they're just slightly, you know, dirty with the sort of age, and so repeatedly hammering away at them is maybe just cleaning that dirt off. But I know you can get some specialist switch cleaner. I don't have any of this. One of the big problems I have in Japan is, I'm sure there's loads of great things you can buy, but I tend to have language barrier problems and things, so if I can't get it from the local shops and I can't find it on Amazon, I can't get it a lot of the time unless you import everything. So I often make do with things that aren't necessarily the right tool for the job. But anyway, the good thing is, hopefully this is now okay, because I'm quite pleased with that, because I was really worried about this one, because I do like the machine. So cost wise, I didn't really care if I broke it, but I didn't want to see it go to nothing, because I say it's quite an interesting machine. Firstly, you know, this really nice mechanical keyboard. As you see, I was cleaning the back yesterday. I'll get rid of all that now it's dried off. I was thinking maybe the back was causing a short circuit or something, because there was all kinds of nastiness on the back. So, I mean, as I said before, I removed the battery here, and there did seem to be some kind of build-up, and I don't know if you can see, but there's actually some signs of corrosion on this slot here. I mean, these are gold plated, it's gone blue, so something must have leaked, and for it to be up here, not down here, I'm guessing maybe that battery did spray upwards. There's still some kind of stickiness there. I'm not quite sure, so I might give that another clean. But the other thing I wanted to show you is down here. I'll give you a close-up photograph of this. Now, as far as I can see, I think I mentioned the other day, there's usually a miniature daughter board on these machines that's kind of the video processor, and the caps are prone to going on it. Now, I can't initially see one. I can't really see one on this. And looking at this weird daughter board here, it's got no ports on it. It's not quite clear what it does, but it's right next to the V9938, which you may well know is the MSX graphics chip. And I'm wondering if this is actually kind of an alternative to that miniature daughter board that you usually get. I don't know what this means. I don't know if this is a very early model or a very specialist model. You know, maybe they wanted a higher quality one, or maybe it was an early prototype and the miniature daughter board hadn't been built. But either way, as I say, I quite like the design of this one. So, well, okay, well, it seems to be working now, hopefully. We do want to test the cartridge slots. So I've kind of got this sacrificial thing, because this is learn basic in Japanese. I could probably just about read it, but whether I could be bothered would be another matter. So let's. I don't really care if this breaks. So let's power it up with basic introducer and see if. Ooh. Okay. Well, that's working okay. I didn't really have any major concerns about the bottom slot, but I can say there is some blue on that one. So what we'll do is we'll put this in, and if it doesn't work, we'll give it a cleaning and repeated reinsertions as required to some life out of it. Okay, so it looks like despite being a little bit gunky looking, both slots do work fine. Very good. Well, I'm going to use a little bit more isopropyl alcohol just to clean around that battery area again, because I'm not fully satisfied with that yet. So there's some kind of something there, and I don't want to risk any. Well, I don't want to minimise the risk of any acid or anything leaking off. And you know, superficially it's gone, but actually it's still there. So I just want to use, seeing as I've got all these cottonwood buds already lurking around, and I'm not short of isopropyl alcohol, give everything a clean. So. Yeah, I mean, the other thing that's quite interesting is that I can actually see some copper tracks here, like the surface has been removed. I've never come across this. As I say, this isopropyl alcohol isn't. I use it all the time, and I've never come across it removing the solder mask before. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm wondering if again that's being caused by some kind of leakage. It's quite far down here. It's just here, you probably can't see it. Let's say that's a long way down from the battery, but there was a very suspicious coating, shall we say, surrounding the battery, and with the age of it, and those things are apparently very notorious for being a killer of machines, it would almost be surprising if it hadn't gone. So anyway, that's enough of that. So we'll unplug this from the mains. Because I want to get all this into one piece, and cross my fingers that my isopropyl misbehaviour hasn't caused any permanent damage. Onto my little desk here. So I did nearly lose the reset button yesterday because I flipped it over, and the reset button is the only thing that's not sort of permanently locked in, and I didn't realise when it dropped. I heard a sound of something dropping, but I didn't realise what it was. Just not got that key plugged in yet, but I'm just checking. It should be okay to get that in later. So I've got this mismatching small screw that just goes in here. One thing I am going to do, just before I screw the top and bottom together, is I am going to take a photograph of the motherboard. Now this, as I say, really, it's good practice if you're going to start taking things apart, especially if you're unplugging cables, is to take photographs of the cables so you don't get them in backwards. Because as I said before, floppy drive cables, some of them have 12-volt power lines and they will blow things up if you plug them in backwards, so that's, you know, you make that mistake at your peril. I do have some machines with floppy drives, and we're going to have a look at trying to repair those later, and hopefully keeping Keith away from the isopropyl alcohol. As I say, I really thought I had killed this, to be honest. That's one more. screw them in too tightly, but I don't want anything flopping around. Put that back in. Just get that out of the way for a second. So I don't know if this is an early model, but it does look very, the chips look really nicely laid out, and you know, I mean, I've given it a little clean up the top, but I haven't really done anything down here. And it does look in, you know, respectable condition. I just, I don't like taking my machines open when I don't need to, but the msx.org wiki is really good. So if I've got a machine open, I try and take a few photos, just because some of the pages on there have got tons of information, but a few of them are a little bit lacking. And it's kind of, you know, if I've got them open and I find the solution today, well, tomorrow when I don't have the solution, if I'm lucky, someone else will have already done it for me, and so it's kind of paying it back there. So they've been kind here. I don't think it's possible to get these on backwards. Struggling to get the last one in because I was trying to put it on backwards. So yes, they have been very kind there and made sure idiots like me can't plug things in backwards. Just put the power button back on. Usually these MSXs have quite a lot of screws, but this one only has 3 at the front, so just having a little bit of trouble there getting the back in, because it's kind of on a hinge on 3 little hooks at the back. I don't know if you can see those. So just before I screw the front back in, let's power it back up and just check all the keys are still working and that power light comes on, that kind of thing. Yeah, the power light comes on. Ah, the reset button. That reset button's not right. Okay, so the reset button's okay again now. There wasn't anything missing. I'd just been a bit overcautious and underscrewed. The screws weren't fully screwed in, so it was just a little bit loose, and whereas you can't tell with the keys, the reset button was just flopping away a bit, so I've done that tighter now. Okay. Wire's a little bit sticky, but as I say, rather than messing around with it isopropyl again, or trying to hunt down some better switch cleaner, you see they do just start working again if you really bash away at them. And as I say, that full stop wouldn't work for anything yesterday, but if you hammer away at them for a while, they do seem to come back to life, and once they do start working again, they do generally seem to be a lot better. Anyway, well, I think we've got a workable machine here. We haven't tried the joystick ports on it, but generally they're okay. So we'll screw it back together, and we'll maybe play some games on it. So we need a joypad. Now I'm going to use this 2-button one. If the game you're playing has only one button, you can use the regular Atari ones, but you do have to be careful. Don't go plugging in a 2-button Amstrad one, because there is a 5-volt out on the MSX, and some joypads use the extra line for their second button, and you will blow up your joypad and cause horrendous damage. So that's something, if you're not familiar with the MSX, that's something to just be careful of. Because I'm still not fully confident on these, I'm not going to plug my my floppy disk emulator in and play my game. So we're going to try Pac-Man. Let's try it on the second slot, because that's the sort of more suspicious of the two, just to check, because I'm pretty sure if slot 2 works, slot 1 I'm sure is fine. There we go. So just a bit of dirt on the cartridge there. I just pulled it out and pushed it back in to reinsert it a couple of times. Oh dear. No, it's not happy. Okay, so let's have a look. Now, of course, I don't know if this is the cartridge or the game system, but I mean, to be honest, whichever it is, the solution is the same. We just put loads and loads of isopropyl alcohol on the cartridge. Insert it the right way. Inject. And then we just keep doing this, keep cleaning it up, get it nice and damp, stick it in, remove it, clean it off, and hopefully whatever corrosion or dirt is on the cartridge or the slot will get removed in the process. Okay, let's try again. And there we go. Well, I mean, you know, if we got this far, then everything's probably okay. Now, it is worth bearing in mind that the sort of the pins on the slot do have different purposes. So a cartridge that doesn't require a 12-volt line, for example, may work fine on a slightly faulty cartridge slot, but a cartridge that does require it may not work at all. So without checking the schematics, I can't say for which pin, what those blue pins do, those slightly blue pins do. But to be honest, they don't look too bad. I mean, they don't look great, but they still look pretty shiny. So I'm kind of suspecting that actually they're going to be okay still. But so let's. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you look at this sort of cartridge, you can see that well, this one's actually got all the pins. Some don't have all of them. You see, some have the pins missing. But to be honest, the pins over in that corner. Actually, I'm saying that now, one of the quite corroded ones isn't in use on this, so maybe it's not the best one to test on. Let's just find another game. Okay, we're going to try this one, which I remotely can't play at all. I think that's Shincho no Yabo. Not sure quite what the meaning of that is. Anyway, don't really care. I think it's some horrible turn-based strategy game, which I always get bored of before the game's really started. So it was cheap. That's my excuse. It's an MSX2 game, so anyway. Well, I mean, it seems to work okay, so and there is still some slight corrosion on there, but as I say, I'm currently not led to believe that it's going to cause this machine any problems, and we've now got the keyboard up to a usable state for me to use it for my game testing, so I think we'll put this one into service for that purpose. Okay, well, I think we can call it a day here. Mute that. I hope you've enjoyed watching me clumsily try and fix this thing. Let me know what you think. Please offer suggestions for products that I should buy instead of using this stuff. Thanks for watching. I hope it's been of some interest to you, and we'll be doing some more later with other machines that I've got for repair. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.